hello, all you friends and partners. Really glad you guys are with us as we're getting more people on. Obviously, Sean Tessman, I'm the director of the department. I was having some technical difficulties, which my team understands for me does not take much. And so I had to use Astra's link to get into the meeting today. So that's why I'm showing up as her. Maybe I'll change that. We'll see if I can.
Okay.
Rename. There we go.
I mean, we totally look alike, Sean. So
that's right. We talked about how we're sisters.
We're the same. It is what it is. Hello, everyone who's coming on. I guess we are still welcoming people in. On my screen, I see Scott Strong. How are you, Scott? I see Greg Markle. Greg, long time no see.
Hello.
From a previous life. Hello, everyone.
I see some friends from the state.
Yeah.
You guys are here with us. Thank you for making the time. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Excellent.
Good stuff. Good people. This is the cool crew. This is the A-team. On this call.
And you got to register for free.
That's right. That's right.
All right. While we are
Let's get going
here, I'll go over a few sort of meeting logistics. So once again, for those of you who I do not know personally yet, I am Sean Tessman. I'm the director of the department. Thank you all for making time to be with us here today to hear about our strategic plan. We're very excited about it. We're very excited also about the product that we have before us and how it was informed by people such as yourselves. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Also with me is Astra Iyeyu Kumare. To me, she's on my left, although I understand that that's probably not the way it looks to you. But Astra, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Astra Iyeyu Kumare. I am the Deputy Director of the department, and just happy to be here, really excited to be presenting, sort of giving a summary of our almost 18 months of work in building this plan. And I want to encourage you all to, I guess, Sean, you're going to do the housekeeping in a second. So
yep, I will. I wanted to let Michelle introduce herself too.
Yeah. Go ahead, Michelle.
The brains behind the plan.
That's right.
Michelle, go ahead, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Dickinson. I am the department's planning and evaluation manager. Turn it back over to you, Sean.
All right, good. So we're all pretty familiar with Zoom etiquette at this point, but just a few reminders just to try to make the virtual experience as helpful to everybody as possible. Please keep yourself on mute unless you are trying to contribute something. You should all know that this meeting is being recorded. And the purpose of that recording is to try to send out the link and to make sure that people who couldn't make time on a Friday, on a beautiful Friday, we're able to nevertheless still get up to speed about what the department's strategic plan is. And then if you have questions about the plan, I would encourage you to use the chat box. I anticipate and hope that we will have time for a little Q&A at the end. And what I will do is when we conclude sort of our overview that we planned for you today, I'll look through the chat box and we'll try to pick up at least some of those questions to address those here live. Otherwise, I know that Michelle will be plugging our strategic planning website. And there's also an FAQ function on there, I believe, and she's nodding, so I'm remembering this correctly. Okay, good. So that's another avenue for questions if we can't get to them today. So what we're really gonna do is we're gonna spend about 40 minutes or so. We're gonna talk about the strategic plan that we released on Monday, April 12th. So that was almost 2 weeks ago now. Crazy how time flies. Michelle's going to ground us a little bit in sort of what a good strategic plan is and specifically what it is not, how we involved our own staff and how we sought to involve stakeholders and community members like yourselves And then Astra's going to talk about our vision, mission, and value statements that were created and announced last summer as part of the planning process. And then Astra and I are going to take turns talking about the strategic priorities themselves. And then Michelle's going to talk a little bit about what's next. And then hopefully we'll do Q&A. So with that, by way of introduction, I'm going to kick it over to Michelle to talk about what is a good strategic plan.
Sorry, you wouldn't think it would take me so long to figure out how to unmute myself after 14 months of Zooming. Thank you again for joining us today. So hopefully my purpose here is just kind of, as Sean said, reframe and reground us all in what is a good strategic plan. So way back in February 2020, when we kicked off our strategic plan, VisionNext process, we set out to create vision and mission statements that are aspirational and ambitious, identify 3 to 5 high-level strategic priorities that cut across all or most of our department's work, involve Dane County citizens, customers, and human service stakeholders, such as yourself, in a variety of conversations, and involve our employees in similar conversations, and finally create a strategic plan that drives future decision making at all levels of our organization. This was our ambition back in February 2020 because those are the foundations of a good strategic plan. Aspirational and ambitious vision, mission, and value statements are important for an organization because they set that foundation and provide that North Star. A vision statement is about what the world will look like as a result of our work. A vision statement tends to be about the perfect world, and they serve as an organization's North Star. A good vision statement is short, inspirational, and memorable. A mission statement describes what we will do and how we will operate to achieve that vision. It should always be a broad statement that speaks to the work nearly all of our staff do and what the community should expect of us. It should guide our department's actions and how we develop partnerships. A good mission statement provides broad answers to the questions, what are we as an organization and what work do we do to achieve our vision? Finally, value statements describe the values that we as an organization and we as individual employees should strive to demonstrate in our day-to-day interactions with our clients, our coworkers, and you, our community members. In crafting vision statements, organizations, of course, should avoid that laundry list of words or statements that are kind of obvious or expected. For example, the word ethical. Every organization should operate ethically and legally. It's kind of expected and goes without saying. So that's one of the words you will not find on our value statements. Together, strong, clear, and well-communicated vision, mission, and value statements define our reason for existing and where we want to head. It helps frame the who, what, why, where, and how of our work. These statements together are our North Star. A good strategic plan also identifies 3 to 5 high-level strategic priorities that cut across all or most of our work. You will see later that we have chosen 5 strategic priorities. Identifying a limited number of priorities was important because when you have too many goals, your attention is often too divided to make any impactful changes related to any one goal. As the saying goes, when everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. Identifying priorities across all of our work is important in the strategic plan because focusing on overarching changes is how we do big and impactful things. That is how we are going to create change in the system and avoid just the development of just one more program, service, or resource for people. A good plan resists the temptation to try to do everything. Again, a plan with too many goals becomes less able to achieve those big, meaningful changes. Our goal is a good strategic plan identifies every necessary changes that have a positive impact on all programs and services across the entire human services spectrum. A good strategic plan drives future decision-making at all levels of an organization. It drives decision-making by prioritizing the focus of resources, time, effort, attention to those large strategic priorities. It makes intentional decisions about where we need to grow, get better, or mature. The VisionNext plan should drive all levels of decision-making in the future, from big decisions about which grant opportunity we as a department seek or where more staff are needed, to little actions like how we as employees choose to interact with our clients and partners. A good strategic plan drives decision-making through clear vision, mission, and values, and again, setting broad priorities that cut across all or most of the department's work. Involving our employees, citizens, customers, and all of you, our human services stakeholders, was important in this process because the key to our success and a well-functioning human services system in Dane County is the collaboration and buy-in of all stakeholders: our employees, our partners, our elected officials, and our community members. By involving many stakeholders, an organization is often more likely to be able to identify root cause challenges and develop well-informed and well-understood priorities necessary to address those challenges. The involvement of many voices in this plan increases the likelihood that all services and resources are effective, innovative, and evidence-based, and support well-being, opportunities to thrive, safety, and justice to persons of all backgrounds. This means that a good strategic plan, by definition, is not a laundry list of everything we do. We do a ton of important stuff every day. Just because a particular program or population is not called out does not mean it is not important. By design, a good strategic plan remains purposefully silent on programs, resources, and operations for which we do not expect significant changes. The plan highlights changes necessary that will be impactful, and the priorities outlined in our strategic plan necessitate changes in all areas of DCDHS. Aligning our work to this vision and mission statement and achieving these priorities will help all programs and services be more effective and efficient. We expect and hope that all facets of our programs and services see themselves reflected here somewhere. A little bit more about how stakeholders, you all, were involved. So again, hearing from stakeholders such as yourself and the community was really important to our process. COVID-19 certainly changed how that happened, but I'm proud to say that it happened. I'll talk a little bit more about the process as a whole next. But first, I just wanted to highlight some of the opportunities that we had to hear from you and your colleagues. First, stakeholder interviews. We reached out to a variety of organizations and collaborations, such as the Dane County Board of Supervisors, mayors of every city in Dane County, our state agency partners, our POS consortiums and coalitions. In all, from late June through early September, we talked with nearly 130 people representing 51 different organizations. In these conversations, we asked about your vision for our community, what our department's priorities should be, what services were needed that didn't exist, how we as a department could play a role in reducing disparities experienced by our communities of color, and how you would describe your current collaborative relationship with us. These conversations were super informative and ended up being pretty foundational to this strategic plan. I'd like to thank everyone who participated in those conversations. I recognize a bunch of names on today's calls as folks who spent significant time with us in those conversations, so thank you. We took what we think we heard in those conversations and developed surveys to give a broader group of stakeholders an opportunity to weigh in. We sent the stakeholder and community surveys to nearly 500 organizations, groups, and coalitions on our list, both agencies we currently contract with, as well as those that we do not. We heard back from a handful of agencies and hundreds of community members. Thank you for helping us send out those surveys to all of our community members. Your support in doing that was super valuable. Finally, we held 4 virtual community listening sessions in November. Hearing from our community and clients was probably the greatest challenge as part of this process because of the pandemic. Originally, we were hoping to partner with organizations like yours in having those in-person discussions, hopefully at events that you guys were already holding. Of course, there were no events or gatherings last summer because of the pandemic. So we had to shift and move those discussions online. Despite the challenges, we were able to get feedback from several dozen community members still. Okay, as promised, a little bit more about our process. Hearing from you all was just part of our overall process. To do a lot of the work, we created an internal work group of employees, which we called the Strategic Advocate Work Group, or SWAG. They did a bulk of our discovery work that typically accompanies a strategic plan. This group of employees met virtually from April through mid-December and did a lot of the survey creation, drafting of the new vision, mission, and values statements. They conducted those stakeholder interviews, so you saw them in this process, and held those community listening sessions. Our leadership team was able to move forward final vision, mission, and values statements, as well as craft the strategic priorities presented here due to the groundwork of that SWAG group. So we started our process internally, actually, by creating new vision, mission, and values statements. We thought it was really important to engage our employees in the discussion of the department's purpose early on and define our North Star. We learned in this process and through those conversations with you all as part of our stakeholder interviews that in a perfect world, one that human services are used less or no longer needed at all in Dane County. So that's how we got to that vision statement. The statements were an iterative process and reflect the work of hundreds of our employees. Again, then we did the stakeholder interviews from June through September. We spent about 75 hours in conversations. In these discussions, we heard about the need and desire to create a person-centered system that meets the needs of all individuals in a timely manner with fewer doors to enter or phone numbers to call. When we asked you all about needs that were not being met, responses were often not about what was missing, but how those services were provided. Again, we followed up with the stakeholder and community surveys. The stakeholder surveys allowed a wider audience of stakeholders to provide input and really confirm what we had heard as part of those stakeholder interviews. The community surveys were added in response to the pandemic as a way to hear from community members and clients. We learned about people's experience with services, barriers to access, what qualities individuals wanted their service providers to demonstrate, and where people heard about services. We also used that survey to identify people who were interested in participating in those community listening sessions. And then those sessions were held in November. We heard more about gaps in the human service system and the safety net, challenges in navigating it, and a need for more information and coordination. Again, thank you to all of those who participated in that process and shared your truth and helped us reach potential clients to hear from. Then finally, near the end of the process, our SWAG group reviewed everything they heard throughout the process and summarized it into a detailed list of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This synthesis and summary was valuable for creating a survey to again hear from our employees. We did that in December and heard from nearly 40% of our employees and heard a little bit about where there were some differences in opinion between our different divisions on some of the things we had heard. And then we also compiled some trend data for all of Dane County that can be found on our website as a separate file along with the full strategic plan. So that was our process. Thank you again to each and every one of you that's on this call today that took time to participate in that process. Thank you also to those who are not on this call, who participated in that process, whether it was through a survey or responding to one of my many emails or talking to us in the stakeholder interviews or helping forward those surveys to your client lists. All of it was super informative and really was very helpful in helping us understand the state of the world.
Great. So, did I unmute myself? Yes. So we came out, our department released our new vision, mission, and values statements, I believe last summer. So I want to just kind of elevate it because it is foundational to how we think about our work and how we approach it. So our new vision statement serves as our North Star, and it answers the question why. It answers why we do what we do. And as Michelle said, in a perfect world, our vision statement, which is empowered people thriving in safe, just, and caring communities, would not need interventions from human services. In a perfect world, we would work ourselves out of existence. So we intend to try to do that. To do that, we must achieve our mission. And our new mission statement is provide access to effective, innovative, and evidence-based services and resources that support well-being, opportunities to thrive, safety, and justice to persons of all backgrounds. As Michelle said, these vision and mission statements were created by our employees primarily. It was at times challenging to come to agreement on these very broad statements that reflect the work of all of us. And we're about 740 people deep here at Human Services. But in the end, we were able to agree that our mission is to support well-being, opportunities to thrive, safety, and justice to persons of all backgrounds. Our value statements are aspirational statements to address how we intend to work with each other, with our partners, with our community, and our clients. The list is certainly not comprehensive. The selection of these words and concepts were intentional. For instance, Human Services has chosen to pursue racial justice rather than racial equity. There were many conversations around the department about equality, equity, and justice throughout our process. These conversations were at times, again, very challenging, passionate, but this challenge we felt helped us grow and learn and be more intentional about what we're saying about who we are. The value of racial justice, by definition, requires us to hold the value of equity, yet justice is a bolder concept, we feel. Similarly, you will see the word diversity emphasized in our values, but not the word inclusion. We encourage you to look more closely at the commitment we make to demonstrate the value of diversity. We value the diversity that all people of various genders, sexual identities, racial identities, ethnicities, sexualities, economic status, abilities, religions, ages, and experiences bring to our work. In valuing this diversity, we are committing to inclusion of different voices and perspectives to inform our work in deep and authentic ways. So we intentionally frame these value statements as commitments. And I'll just quickly read them because I think it's worth the time to just read them really quickly. Accountability and transparency. We are stewards of public trust. We commit to the evaluation and review of our services and programs. We will be as transparent as possible through open communication within our organization, with our partners, and with the communities that we serve. Collaboration. We commit to building collaborative, inclusive, and informed relationships with staff, with clients, with partners, and the larger community to foster trust, respect, and effective partnerships across all programs and services. Racial justice, we commit to pursuing racial justice through institutional change to actively dismantle policies, practices, messages, and attitudes that both perpetuate and fail to eliminate racism and differential outcomes by race. Diversity, we celebrate our differences, recognizing diversity as a strength that will help us effectively tackle the challenges we collectively face. We strive to create an inclusive culture by authentically bringing diverse voices and perspectives into discussion and decision-making. Empathy, we recognize the existence of generational, historical, community, and personal trauma. We approach every interaction with clients and staff with the empathy and compassion necessary to address trauma and repair harm. And finally, growth and learning. We commit to organizational learning and growth by listening, training, collaborating, and innovating to ensure that our work is responsive, current, engaged, and focused on positive change. So those are our new vision, mission, and values, and how we intend to think, and that answers our questions why and how we will approach our work moving forward.
Okay, I'll talk a little bit, start diving into the strategic priorities themselves. So we've called this process VisionNext, and our VisionNext, our strategic plan for 2021 through 2026 will guide the department in its work over the next 5 years and likely thereafter. The strategic priorities focus on both internal changes and external changes, and the two are somewhat interrelated, but I think it's worth bearing that out. And something else about terminology to kind of ground us in this conversation before we get deeper into it, because strategic planning does have very precise terminology. And so when you hear these terms to help you understand what it is we're talking about. So our priorities are these 5 things that are on this slide and that we will talk about individually. Those are our priorities. Within them, we will have initiatives, and those are 4 to 5 things that are pretty broad statements of activity that we intend to do to pursue us achieving our priority. Those initiatives we think will maybe change a little bit over time and adapt to changing circumstances as they unfold over the coming months and years. But the priorities themselves, we don't intend for those to change. And then within a little bit further deeper in, within those actual initiatives, there will be the development of annual tactics. So those are SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound goals that will help us actually achieve the initiative. So there's 3 different layers of things that we'll be talking about here. And what we will share is not only the statements about the priorities, but the initiatives. And then if you look into some of the appendices in the strategic plan, you'll see the tactics that we've identified that are currently underway for the year 2021. And then those tactics will get refreshed annually. We will have work groups with staff to help define those tactics for the coming year. So we will create work groups to work on tactics for 2022 later on this year. So that's a little bit of an orientation about how this is structured. All right, first priority, advance racial justice in Dane County through the programs we fund, the services and resources we provide, and how we recruit and retain staff of color. So likely no surprise to any of you on this call, people in Dane County experience significant racial disparities across a variety of measures. We as the department acknowledge the harm caused by systems that contribute to socioeconomic and other disparities and inequitable outcomes, especially among communities of color. We as the department understand that these systems still exist, and we seek to chart a path of improvement by disrupting these systems that create just communities for everyone. So this is our first priority, is to advance racial justice. So some of the initiatives within that broader priority. We will enhance organizational commitment and focus on racial equity through department-wide trainings and conversation to develop shared understanding, enhance individual commitment, and build staff and organizational capacity. If you do choose to look into our 2021 tactics, you'll see that we've begun a multi-year partnership with the YWCA to help us in that work, and that will probably be a springboard for other work as well. Another initiative is we will make changes to recruitment and hiring policies and procedures to increase retention, trust, and racial and ethnic diversity of staff. So that is, as you can gather, more internally facing, but obviously, you know, our public faces in terms of our staff and the kind of work that they do in their community obviously has impact in the work that they do with the communities that we serve. We will apply a racial justice lens to decision making. We will expand the POS network, Purchase of Service Network, or otherwise known as the vendors that we work with, to include more providers of color. We will examine our policies and procedures for interpretation and translation to improve access for all members of the community. So this is specifically interpretation and translation of language and other adaptive needs that people might have to be able to access our services. So that is our first priority.
Great. I do want to, before I get into this slide, I do want to remind people that they can chat their questions if there's things that you wonder about or want to hear more about as we move through the slides. Hopefully we'll have some time at the end to address some of those. So please feel free to use the chat. Okay, so our second priority is one that is probably more internal facing, but we are spotlighting cultural transformation in our priorities for the next 5 years. So our second priority is to create, strengthen, and support an organizational culture that exemplifies our core values in which employees feel empowered, respected, and valued. The values that we adopted over the summer that I talked about previously were in many ways aspirational and are aspirational. Our intention is to do the work necessary internally to change that and make human services the best workplace in Dane County. Our employees do amazing work every day, and they are the backbone of the services and resources we provide to thousands of individuals every year. So without about 740 talented, dedicated, and resourceful staff, human services could not fulfill our mission. So therefore, we are prioritizing our employees in the coming years. We will achieve this priority through the following initiatives. We will engage employees in policy and process development in meaningful and intentional ways that break down programmatic silos and effectively utilizes their skills, knowledge, and abilities. We will enhance internal communication for increased accountability and transparency. We will also ensure performance reviews are timely, meaningful, and encourage employee professional development where we can. And we will develop, formalize, and implement onboarding and offboarding procedures, which is basically just helping people transition into their roles in our department smoothly, and to also helping people transition out of their roles onto newer and bigger and better opportunities if they choose to leave the department. So we are formalizing and developing and implementing those efforts. Finally, we will develop and implement recognition practices that increase staff engagement and retention. We want to celebrate and elevate the incredible work our staff do and the incredible achievements that we've been able to achieve as a department. So that's our second priority.
Our third priority on its face might also feel like it's internally facing, but I do think that this is one that will have, I hope, huge spillover effect in our community in terms of how it relates to how we function as a department. Our third priority is to enhance our computer systems, program evaluation infrastructure, contract management processes, and communication strategy to enable and facilitate data-driven decision-making and effective collaboration. Information is key to breaking down silos within the department and between the department and our partners. And we heard that over and over and over and over again throughout this process. And too often how this plays out in the community, no surprise to you, individuals have multiple contacts with different parts of the department, but no one person has the full picture of what those interactions are, or that's pretty rare. To do effective change around this, we need to enhance our internal infrastructure necessary to start painting a larger systematic picture of the world of our clients, to coordinate efforts to build holistic services and to communicate both internally and externally. So some of the initiatives within this priority are the following. We will create a project management approach to effectively prioritize our portfolio of projects, both IT related and non-IT related, to provide infrastructure necessary for innovation and collaboration. We will evaluate our IT infrastructure needs to reduce manual work, enhance data analytics, and support innovation. We will design a department-wide communications approach and develop internal and external communications protocols. We will strengthen contract management best practices, and we will enhance program and outcome evaluation infrastructure.
And so our fourth priority, we know that person-centered and holistic services require collaboration across the system, both with programs and partners like you all, that human services funds, as well as those systems providers that do not necessarily receive funding from us. This collaboration starts with greater awareness among all systems stakeholders about the services and resources available and provided by each player, and builds over time to a quote unquote no wrong door system in which a customer client can talk to one person or provider and find the resources necessary to meet all their needs. So to achieve this, our fourth priority is to build trusting collaborative partnerships internally and externally to ensure the department meets the needs of all communities in innovative and effective ways. And so we have the following initiatives that we've elevated and to begin to address this. We will assess the health of our current partnerships and identify ways to strengthen and expand those partnerships. We will seek feedback on the experience of our clients to broaden the community and lived experience voice in service delivery. We will support training and development needs of contracted and non-contracted providers across the county to strengthen their performance. And finally, we will redesign our website, which is in process, I'm proud to say, as an engagement and information sharing tool for clients, for human services staff, and partners and others throughout the community. So I know secretly you all are cheering about hearing the website update, so it's coming.
All right, and our fifth and final priority. When it didn't matter who we were talking to, if we were talking to staff, if we were talking to POS, if we were talking to mayors, it didn't matter. Behavioral health and housing also came up over and over and over and over again. And this is where we struggled, because we know that there's a lot of needs across the community, but it was clear to us through this process that these are root causes for a lot of other effects and a lot of other needs that become evident in our community. If families lack access to stable or well-coordinated resources in these areas, it often leads to system involvement in other places that are not intended. One person could have multiple people from multiple systems working with them at the same time, and those partners may not know who else is serving their client. And this is especially problematic as it relates to some of these root causes like behavioral health and housing. So through that, we concluded that really having a focus on behavioral health and housing is going to, again, have a broader systematic impact over time that will either directly or indirectly affect our provision of services across the spectrum. So our fifth priority is to innovate and build systematic solutions that reduce multi-system involvement for individuals with behavioral health needs or who face housing instability, in which individuals receive culturally competent and person-centered services. So that is our fifth priority. Some of the initiatives that we have outlined to help us achieve this priority is with the authority, of course, of the county board and our county executive, we'll design and launch a behavioral health triage and restoration center. There's a lot of community momentum around that, and we want to be ready and poised to be able to prioritize that. So we noted that here. Second, we will partner to develop a purpose-built shelter for those experiencing homelessness with adequate case management services and resource connections. Again, that will be subject to the authority of our county board of supervisors and our county executive, but we anticipate that there will be big changes in that area, and that and the triage center both are game changers in terms of our ability to deliver services and to prioritize behavioral health and housing. Third, we will also increase the number of affordable housing units and make those units more accessible to people with less than perfect housing history. We will build staff awareness of programs and resources across the department to enable appropriate referrals and warm handoffs. So this is about the silos that we heard about, both internally and externally. And we will create and implement a holistic approach that connects individuals to preventative services and resources at the time that they are needed. So those are some of the initiatives that we have outlined for priority number 5.
Thanks. So as Sean and Astra just outlined, this plan sets forth 5 pretty big priorities for the next 5 years. We want to achieve racial justice, promote organizational culture, modernize infrastructure, strengthen our partnerships, and innovate and build systemic solutions to our challenges. Progress on these priorities necessitates changes in all department divisions at all levels of our organization. These priorities are large and aspirational and will require a great deal of focus, attention, and resources in the coming years. While we are celebrating the achievement of this milestone today, we've released our plan to you, all the community. It's important to keep in mind that this is certainly not the end. These priorities, again, are pretty big. Now that we've developed the plan, we need to shift into implementation and management. So there will continue to be more work done internally. In the meantime, though, we do invite you to continue to reach out to any of your colleagues in the department to ask questions or provide thoughts and insight. In the meantime, we recognize that there was a lot of momentum built up during this process, and it was important to capture and document. As Sean had mentioned earlier, at the end of the strategic plan, the one with all the appendices, I think it's like page 70-ish, you will find a list of tactics that the department has already committed to and in many cases started to implement for 2021, which will help us make progress on these priorities. These tactics were identified through all of these conversations with you all and reflect the listening and learning and decision making that we made throughout this process. Sean also mentioned we are working on putting together some work groups to identify those tactics for 2022 and beyond. So we will continue that work. So that's our next steps. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. That is the end of our formal presentation. I will turn it over to Sean to answer any of your questions.
All right, I'm looking in the chat box. Future of telehealth and Zoom for vendors. I would say, first and foremost, I'm really glad that we have our state agency partners on the line. because everything that we do within a lot of those spaces is subject to regulatory oversight and guidance. And I know that there's a lot of things that we have learned about the Zoom experience, both good and bad, but I think a lot of surprising wins that I think people have acknowledged, not only for our staff in terms of the ability to work remotely, but the other thing that I heard a lot is that being able to use teleconferencing technology, Zoom, has enabled us to be able to be a little bit more effective in some certain populations with connecting with people. Certainly, we know that it's easier to try to engage families if they don't have to arrange childcare or take time off of work to travel, or hop on 2 buses to get over to the job center, for example. There are some wins there that we definitely want to capitalize on, and we want to embed as part of our permanent practice going forward. And there's, I know that there's also a lot of energy at the state agency level about embedding some of those best practices and some of those lessons that we've learned throughout the pandemic as well. So very long answer to the question, which means that I don't think that we are going back to the way things used to be in February of 2020. I think, I'm certainly reading about this, not only about the department and about our community, but nationally and internationally, a real desire to take advantage of the lessons that we've learned and ways where remote engagement can improve our services, and to try to embed those into our practice. Now, we also know that as we're coming out of the pandemic, that remote connection has not been ideal, and it's been a struggle for certain parts of our population or certain parts of our program, and people who maybe just need that human interaction, or for different regulatory reasons, we need to have an actual face-to-face. So I am looking forward to being able to resume more of those activities as the pandemic wanes, and hopefully it will keep waning here, at least locally. So I think it'll continue to be a mix, but I do think that looking out into the future, I don't think we're ever going to want to try to remove that as an option, because we know that it's useful in some places. Not knowing the particular service or the program that you serve, I would just encourage you to reach out directly to your contract manager and stay in good contact with that person. And but philosophically, I think we know that there's some wins here, and we're not looking to retreat back to pre-COVID days from the standpoint of the use of technology. So thank you for that question. I hope that's helpful. Oh, Shannon, thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, it was a struggle. It was a struggle in the midst of everything with the pandemic and everything that the department was facing, and you were all facing alongside us to make sure that this stayed a priority. But as Michelle talked about, it really did help inform things that we put into place throughout 2020 and into 2021. So that was a critical decision that we made pretty early on, is do we just push this off and focus on the pandemic, or do we try to keep the wheels on the bus and keep this plan moving forward? And we decided to go ahead and keep pressing on, and I'm very, very glad that we did, but it made for some very, very long days and what were already long days. So thank you for that acknowledgement. I appreciate it. Michelle, I think, lost a few years of her life throughout this process, and be able to get them back.
Hey, Sean, before you,
Yeah.
I just want to mention, Michelle, if you could chat out the link to the plan on our website. If I know that I think everybody on here probably got an email from us from Sean with the link of the plan, but if you didn't, it's also posted. I also wanted to just mention, Michelle had referred to an acronym called SOG or SWAG. SWAG is our internal, it's an acronym that is our strategic work. We call it the Strategic Action Work Group, was it, Michelle? But we don't like the word SOG, so we call them SWAG instead. But that's what that is. So I know there were some acronyms that maybe we failed to explicitly say what they were. But so I just wanted to mention those two things, that if you can't find that email somewhere in your, I'm quite sure, full inboxes, you can definitely go to our website and see if you're just interested in the short version, which is just our plan, But if you're interested in the background, the appendices, which is close to 70 pages altogether, you can get that. You can get both versions on our website. So, and I also want to just say this: we will be having translation into Spanish and Hmong for these plans as well, and those will be posted when we have the translations completed.
Yeah, just a quick note. I got the link in the chat now. I had to do a little lack of screen sharing, sorry. And I have seen the translation, the Hmong translation, and sent it back for just a little bit of revision, and expect the Spanish translation next week. So hopefully very, very soon that's coming.
Good. I see Scott Strong from Rise has got a stumper in here for me in the chat. Essentially, I think, recognizing that all of us that do this work never have enough money, never have enough time in the day, and what shifts do I anticipate, or do we anticipate as we try to implement these plans? So I think a few things. I think, as we try to talk about what the core foundation of a strategic plan is to resist the temptation to have it be a laundry list of everything we do. We have a lot of things over which, we're mandated services, and those will certainly continue. I think that it will be more about the lens through which we apply decision making. That's really how I've been talking about it a lot internally. And we know in this work, there's very few times where you're weighing a decision and you have a perfect solution over here and a terrible solution over here, right? What you often have is pros and cons. And so we really want this plan to inform what's going to tip the scales in those situations. What's going to best apply our values. What's going to help us get further to helping us achieve our priorities, and to have that be in the minds of all of us as we make day-to-day decision making moving forward. So I think that's foundational. The other thing that I think is, as we get into the annual tactics, we will purposefully create space to do deep thinking around what are the specific things that we need to do to move the needle on these priorities. And we will state those as objectives. Michelle will probably laugh at me, but, and just to give you an indication of this, and they will look like SMART goals. And so there will be things, I have my SMART goals from 2020. I don't know if you can see it because of my background.
Your background, yeah.
It's printed on lime green paper, and I had it laminated for every member of M Team. And the expectation is that, and this is 1 page or less, right? So this is what I see in terms of our tactics on an ongoing basis, because it's really, really easy to get swallowed up by I'm going to call it noise, but that has a pejorative tone to it. I don't intend it that way, because it's all really important work. But we need to stay focused on a few key things every year. And we will be making space for those things to make sure that in the midst of everything else that we're all trying to do every day, what are the things that we are mindfully and intentionally intending to do on an annualized basis to get us closer to achieving these priorities. So it's a very long answer to say that we will rely on the process in terms of the actual creation of these work groups and the thinking through and coming up with what are those tactics on an annualized basis. And then we are going to make absolute sure that we are going to pull out all the stops to try to achieve what it is we set out to do each year, so that we are being intentional, and we are doing things that are realistic, and that we're holding ourselves accountable for making those changes. So it's hard for me to tell you at this moment what those shifts will look like, because I am going to rely on the process. But I think and hope that you and others will experience that we are living out our values a little bit better in our day-to-day interactions, and that we are making decision-making, we are doing decision-making in alignment with what those priorities are, and that we're trying to prioritize and focus on those things that we're setting out to do strategically.
Sean, I would add to what you said, which I think you kind of don't give yourself enough credit in terms of one of the priorities is collaboration. And so that has to do with how we, not only how we relate to you all as a community partners, but also how we work. We're very siloed. As a department, we're huge and we're siloed. And one of the things that Sean has held us accountable as her leadership team, but also just the broader department through the priority that we highlighted around that is we need to work differently. We need to work together. We need to work more efficiently instead of through our silos. So I definitely anticipate that how we work will change, even internally. And I think it'll be less frustrating for you all sometimes to partner with us because the left hand will start talking to the right hand in across silos in our department. So I think you will experience or possibly see some changes through the next 5 years in terms of the collaborative approach to how we work.
Yes, I hope so. And please be patient with us and call us out if that doesn't get to be your experience, right? Because it is growth and learning. That's one of our values. And to embrace that as a value, you know, we have to be willing to be vulnerable in that space and to learn from where we get it wrong. The other thing that I would, Michelle's probably going to be irritated with me when I do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Specifically around the partnerships, one of the initiatives, as we talked about, is to assess the health of our partnerships. I don't think we know what that looks like. So if you have ideas for what that assessment should look like, how do we quantify it? How do we evaluate it? I think we would be open to those ideas because we know we want to do it. But I don't know that we necessarily, oh, she's actually happy with me, good. But we don't actually know what that looks like. And I think we welcome your feedback on what are the mechanics? Is it a survey? Is it focus group? What does that mean? So.
Yeah.
And Sean, on that note, you all see my email address there on your screen. Copy that down if you have thoughts on that assessment that Sean just talked about, or anything else, or any other questions that we don't get to today. Never hesitate, drop me an email, and we will have that conversation, get your question to the right place, whatever that email needs.
Yeah. Also interested in hearing, not necessarily right now if you're not prepared to share it, and I think we're almost running out of time here, but would be interested to hear how this feels, how what you heard today feels. Does it strike as this is the right tone that human services should be thinking about for the next 5 years from your perspective? It is what it is. It is our plan. We're not changing it going forward for the next 5 years. But I think Michelle and I are, and Sean, we're always trying to figure out and hear feedback and want to make sure that this doesn't seem surprising to you all as valued partners that engage with us and through various ways regularly. It doesn't seem off kilter or out of left field. Whatever your thoughts are, I think we would welcome hearing them. So.
Seeing a lot of praise in the chat, and I appreciate that a lot. And it is a collaborative effort, right? We don't exist independent of each other, and we are mutually needed. And hopefully, you will see the focus and the elevation of our partnerships as an extension of respect for the work that you guys do every day. So thank you for that. All right, I think we are probably out of time. People probably want to take a break and get some lunch. So just want to thank you once again for making the time, especially on a Friday, to be with us for an hour. I know your time is valuable, and I appreciate your interest in this, and look forward to continuing the work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Armando. I see you. Bye-bye.
Hey, Astra, I see you too.
All right. Take care.
Bye.